So spirituality, communing with ancestors, very important. I don't want to read all of this word for word because it gets a little lengthy. Making sure that you get in community. I don't care if it's virtual. I don't, EYL, perfect, right? EYL is a community that all of us are a part of. I had this conversation with Magda. Hopefully, she doesn't mind me sharing a piece of it. But when I first met her, I was explaining to her that I had just come off of a trip from Europe. I had gone to Amsterdam as well as Paris. And I experienced some racism while I was there. And so I think it was like maybe a week or even days later, I ended up at InvestFest and, surrounded by all of these people who look like me and watching these super brilliant, educated people on stage. And I literally came to tears as I was sitting in the audience because it felt so good just to be around people who love me and embrace me, right? And we're all just loving on each other, which was very different from the experience that I had in Europe, just days prior. So also rage work. So finding a way to release that anger that is effective and, not beating people up. We don't want to end up in jail. And then there are some different types of therapy that we also practice that can be very helpful. Of the ones listed here, I really have an appreciation for decolonized therapy. It is essentially like this idea that we have to center our culture and we have to center our family and our very specific racial experiences as a part of therapy, right? So we can't go into therapy with this cookie cutter approach because at some point race is going to come up at some point. It just does. It's a part of, even if we're just having a simple conversation about how someone mistreated you or treated you differently, and you're not sure that race is involved, but you're thinking that it may have something to do with it. It could be something like that, and it really does have to be considered. So another one of my favorite quotes, because I have so many of them, Audre Lorde says, caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation, and that is an act of political warfare. So if we really want to be strong and stand strong together in our community, we have to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, that we are educating ourselves, and we have to make sure we're in a place where we can show up for ourselves and for others, right? So this is the point where I would love to hear questions from you all, any takeaways that you have that you might, be able to relate to or appreciate, and if you want to share stories or experiences with racial trauma, I would love to hear those as well.
Thank you so much, Mahogany. This was absolutely an amazing presentation, as I expected it would be. So earners, like she said, we met each other at InvestFest. We met each other at the VIP dinner the last night. And it was funny because I was just there, standing exhausted, and she comes up to me. We started talking and we had the deepest conversation within, I think, 10, 15 minutes, to the point that we had to say, all right, let's kind of decompress from this and get back to, partying. But it was just so amazing. It was the first time I actually heard about therapy for racial trauma. It was the first time I had ever heard about it. And we shared our experiences, which were so similar. I said, this was the first time I was in a room with so many people that looked like me. I wasn't the outcast, there were so many of us with the same mindset. And I think you had said it, Mahogany, you said, you almost felt like you came to InvestFest and you got refreshed. Like you had that taken away from you with the experiences that you had in Europe. And then you came to InvestFest and then you were refreshed. So I think this conversation is so amazing that we're having it with the earners, because so many of us experience it. So I think it's such a great topic to talk about, and I can't wait to hear what you all have to say. Definitely put your hands up, drop it in the chat, but we would love to hear your stories and experiences, and just like she said, takeaways from this presentation. This was absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So Ernest, feel free, raise your hands. All right, we have the first person.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. So Shavita, we came to you. You can go ahead and speak.
Hi, thank you so much for that presentation. It was wonderful. I saw that it was available because I actually just had an issue today, but it's a little bit different because it involved my 15-year-old daughter, where a racial comment was made to her by a white student. And so I'm trying to find ways for the school to not only, they're taking disciplinary action, but also what they can do moving forward to kind of better educate. Cause it was making sure they don't have these microaggressions at school as well.
Mhm. So have you had a conversation with, principal leadership there? Or you're trying to figure out how to address that particular topic?
We had a conversation today and they said that they are trying to come up with ways that they are going to educate the students moving forward, but they don't have like anything definitive.
Mhm,
And they were asking us to kind of help or give input, but
mhm.
I don't really know what kind of input we should give. Like I gave recommendations about things that we might experience or how things might be misconstrued when they're like microaggressions, things that kind of are I won't say borderline racism, but
Very subtle.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, absolutely. Is there anybody who's being held accountable for the experience of your child?
Yes, the person they don't tell you what they're getting done, but they just say
Right.
disciplinary action is going to be taken. So yes, they're holding them accountable.
Yeah.
And they're offering, like counseling for, I won't say the guidance counselor is available for my daughter to talk. And
Mhm.
they're saying that pretty much it'll be on her terms since she is the victim in the situation.
Very good, very good. Well, so before I comment on how they responded, are you satisfied with the response that you got from the school?
Not really. I want to follow up with them in like a week or two to see exactly what they're going to do because I
Okay.
realize too it's new territory for them. So
Mhm.
I'm just hoping that the follow-up response is going to be adequate.
Sure.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, Sharita. I definitely appreciate that. I think that it's a really good starting place, I would say, to make sure that the student or the person is being held accountable. And sometimes I will say that we make complaints and we're told that certain things will happen in order to just get us to go away, right? And so it sounds like
Hmm.
they're saying that they're going to raise awareness, that they're going to educate students about it. And that sounds like a wonderful idea. If I were you, I would continue to follow up with them about it to make sure that that actually gets done. Even if you have the opportunity or the time to be a part of whatever that awareness is or that process, that might be something that is good. Or even if your daughter, wants to be a part of it, I'm not sure what her comfort level would be, but that could also be therapeutic for her in a sense, depending on how she looks at it. But definitely follow up to make sure that they are addressing it to the school at large.
Okay. Yes, I will definitely do that. And that's what they had mentioned too. I just didn't know if there were any resources already available that address it at that particular age.
Ah, I see. So for teenagers, well, believe it or not, teenagers tend to experience racial trauma in a very similar way to adults. So, I think what I would do is, are you familiar with therapy for Black girls?
I have heard of it. Yes.
Okay, so Therapy for Black Girls is essentially a search engine for other Black therapists. I think that we tend to be more educated about racial trauma because many of us have experienced it as well. That might be a good starting place for your daughter individually. I don't know if she's already in therapy. And it doesn't even mean that she needs to be in therapy long term, but just to have a professional to talk to about her experience so that it doesn't, heighten, so that it doesn't, kind of grow, if you will. That
Hmm.
might be a good idea. If you don't think she's at the point where she needs therapy right now, I would keep an eye on her just to make sure that you don't notice any differences in her behavior, her attitude, or that she's more emotional than usual. Just continue to check in with her to make sure she's okay.